Don't adjust anything. Don't sit up straighter. Wherever you are right now, in whatever room, with whatever weight you walked in carrying, that is exactly where this was meant to find you. I wrote this in the dark, late most nights, when the house was finally quiet. And the only honest version of me was the one still awake. And I'll tell you the truth, it didn't feel like writing, it felt like remembering. Like something I had always known, and spent most of my life pretending I didn't. There were nights it scared me, because once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And I knew the moment I wrote it down plainly, neither could you. In 1908, 3 people who refused to give their names printed the same thing I finally understood. The walls are not walls. The world you are looking at is not made of matter. It is made of mind. They called it the first law. I'm not going to explain it to you. I'm going to read it to you, the way it was meant to be read. In a dark room, to one person. So turn the lights down, and let's begin. You can get the ebook now at mindhavenaudio.cloud. Plus, I'll be adding free downloadable MP3 files, so you can listen to the book offline whenever you want.
Chapter 1.
You are sitting in a room right now. Maybe the lights are off. Maybe there is only the glow in front of you and the small machine hum of the building you live inside. Feel the chair under you. Feel the weight of your own arms. Feel how the floor pulls at you. Quietly, the way it has pulled at you every second of your life since the day you were born. That weight is the first thing you ever knew. Before language, before your name. You came into this world, and something heavy closed around you, and a voice somewhere told you that this was reality. Solid, fixed, final. The walls are the walls. The bills are the bills. The body in the mirror is the body you are stuck with. You believed them. Of course you did. Everyone around you believed it too. But in 1908, in a back room in Chicago, 3 people who would not give their names printed a small book. And that book said, "The walls are not walls." It said, "The world you are looking at is not made of matter at all." It said, "Reality is mental." That everything you can touch, everything you fear, everything you have ever begged to change is a thought before it is a thing. And that whoever truly understands this stops being a prisoner of the world and becomes the one writing it. They called this the first law, mentalism. The first of 7 keys to a door most people never even see. Now, here is the thing the comfortable people will tell you. They will say this is old superstition, a relic, a dead idea dressed up in candlelight. And that is exactly what you are supposed to think. That is the lock working as designed. Because the people who actually read this book and understood it did not get rich quick. They did something stranger. They went quiet. They stopped fighting their own lives the way you have been fighting yours. And the world around them began, slowly, to bend. You have felt this prison. You may not have had a name for it. That low ceiling on your life. The sense that no matter how hard you push, the same situations keep arriving at your door, wearing different faces. The same heartbreak. The same money fear. The same version of you in the glass. That is not bad luck. We are going to call it by its real name tonight. The invisible prison. And the door out of it was printed in plain English over 100 years ago, and then buried under a century of people who were too asleep to read it. So this is not a motivational video. I am not going to tell you to think positive. I am going to read you a dangerous book the way it was meant to be read, to one person, in a dark room, at the exact moment they are finally ready to hear it. Over the next 2 hours, we are going to descend. 7 chambers, 1 for each of the 7 principles. But tonight, we only need the first. because the first is the master key. Get this one wrong, and the other 6 are useless. Get it right, and the others open on their own. There is a line in this book. It is the first thing the authors wrote before any of the teaching. A warning, really. It means most people who hear these words will not actually hear them. The words will slide off. They will nod and feel something and go back to sleep by morning. But not all of them. One of them stays awake. Tonight, I am going to assume that is you. So before we step through the first door, you need to know where this book came from. Because the story of how it surfaced is almost as strange as what it says. And it begins with 3 men who refused to put their names on the most influential occult book of the last 100 years.
Chapter 2.
1890-something, the world was certain it had everything figured out. Steel and steam, electric light arriving in the cities, the machine age telling every man and woman that the universe was a clockwork made of solid parts, and that you were one of the smaller parts, and that you should keep quiet and keep turning it. And then, in 1908, a thin volume appeared in Chicago, printed by a small house called the Yogi Publication Society. No author. Just 3 words on the credit. The 3 initiates. The full title told you exactly how much nerve these people had. The Kybalion, a study of the Hermetic philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece. They were claiming to carry a teaching older than the pyramids, smuggled through 3,000 years of secrecy, and they were handing it to anyone with the price of a book. For decades, nobody knew who wrote it. That was the point. Anonymity was not shyness. It was a weapon. A book with no author cannot be argued with, cannot be dismissed by attacking the man. It simply sits there claiming to be the voice of something far older than any single life. We do know more now. Modern scholarship points hard at one man, a lawyer and writer named William Walker Atkinson, a leading voice of the movement they called New Thought, who wrote under a dozen names and may have written under this one too. So the ancient masters had a Chicago address and a printing bill. But here is where the cynics get it wrong, and where you need to stay awake. Knowing who held the pen does not kill the idea. The Kybalion never claimed to be a freshly dug-up scroll. It claimed to distill something, to take a current of thought that really does run back through the old Hermetic writings, the Corpus Hermeticum, the lines carved into what they called the Emerald Tablet, and to press it down into 7 hard principles a modern mind could actually use. The name at the center of all of it is a figure called Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes, the thrice great. Not a man so much as a mask worn by a whole tradition, a fusion of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, the keeper of writing and the weigher of souls. The Hermetic teaching was always passed mouth to ear, master to student, because it was considered too potent to leave lying around for the unprepared. That is the tradition the Kybalion plugged itself into. And whether you call it genius or theft, the result was the same. A handful of pages, in plain language, claiming to hold the operating instructions for reality itself. The book has never gone out of print, not once in over 100 years. Think about what that means. Most books die in a season. This one survived 2 world wars, the rise and fall of empires, the entire age of television, and it is still passed quietly hand to hand, still whispered about, still sitting in the back of the shelf where the comfortable people would rather not look. So why does it feel forbidden? It was never officially banned. There is no list it sits on. The censorship was subtler than that, and far more effective. It was buried by ridicule, by the slow, patient laughter of a world that decided anything you cannot weigh on a scale is nonsense. They did not have to burn this book. They only had to teach you, from your first day in school, that the inside of your head is a side effect. A little electrical noise produced by meat. That consciousness comes last. That matter comes first. And that the idea of mind-shaping reality is a fairy tale for me. That is the most successful suppression in history, not a bonfire. A shrug. A culture so sure the world is dead matter that it never even checks. And you live inside that shrug. You were raised inside the gray architecture. A whole civilization built on the assumption that you are a small, soft object that things happen to. That the economy happens to you. That love happens to you or fails to. That your own mind is a passenger in a body it does not steer. The Kybalion walks into that and says, calmly, that you have it exactly backwards. It says there are 7 principles holding the whole structure together, 7 laws, and it makes you a promise that should stop you cold. It says, he who knows these 7, understandingly, holds the master key, and before that key, every door in the temple opens. So let me show you the 7 doors before we step through the first, so you know exactly what is waiting deeper in. The first is mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. This is the door we walk through tonight. The second is correspondence. As above, so below. The pattern in the atom is the pattern in the galaxy, and the pattern in your private inner world is the pattern that shows up in your outer life. The third is vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates, including thought itself. The fourth is polarity. Everything is dual. Hot and cold are the same thing in different degree. Love and hate, courage and fear, the same line measured from opposite ends. The fifth is rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. The swing one way is the measure of the swing back. The sixth is cause and effect. Every effect has its cause. Nothing escapes the law. What looks like chance is only a law you have not learned to see yet. And the seventh is gender. A masculine and a feminine principle in everything, on every plane, the will and the imagination. The two-have of every act of creation. 7 chambers. We could spend a lifetime in each one. But notice the order. They did not put mentalism first by accident. The other 6 are all describing how the machine runs. The first one tells you what the machine is made of. And what it is made of, according to this book, it's mind. Not your mind. Not at first. Something far larger. A mind so vast it is dreaming the floor under your feet, the light on your face, and the very hands you are holding still right now. That is the first law. And the moment you actually understand it, not as a nice thought, but as a fact about the room you are sitting in, something in the prison comes loose. So let us stop circling the door. Let us open it.
Chapter 3.
Here is the whole law in 7 words. Sit with them. The all is mind. The universe is mental. That is the first thing the book teaches, and it is the foundation everything else stands on. So we are going to take it apart slowly, because almost everyone who reads it fast gets it wrong. Start with that strange phrase. The all, not God, the way you were handed God as a child. The old man on the cloud keeping score. The all is the book's name for the one reality underneath everything. Underneath matter. Underneath energy. Underneath the chair and the bills and the body and the stars. The book says all of that. Every solid seeming thing you have ever known is the surface. And the thing beneath the surface, the actual substance of it, is not stone. It is not particles. It is mind. The authors are careful here, and you should be too. They say the all, in itself, is unknowable, undefinable. You cannot put it in a jar. You cannot draw a diagram of it. The instant you think you have captured it in a word, you have captured the word and lost the thing. But they offer one way to lean toward it. They say you may think of it as an universal, infinite, living mind. A mind with no edges. A mind that was never born and will never die. A mind that is right now thinking. And what is it thinking? It is thinking the universe. This is the part that breaks the sleeping mind in half, so go slow with me. The Kybalion does not say the universe is fake. It does not say none of this matters. Throw it away. It is all illusion. That is the lazy reading, and it is wrong. The book says the universe is real. It is simply that its nature is mental. The way a dream is real while you are in it. The way the entire world of a story is real inside the mind that holds it. The universe, the book says, is a mental creation of the all, held in that infinite mind the way an image is held in yours. Read that line again, because it is doing something violent and quiet at the same time. We do not live inside a mind the way a fish lives in a tank, separate from the water. We live and move and have our being in it. We are made of the same substance as the dream we are dreamed inside. You are not a thing in the universe. You are a movement in a thought. Now feel the floor again. That floor feels final. It feels like the most solid fact in your life. Push on it, and it pushes back. And the materialist, the comfortable man, says, "See, that is reality. That is the hard ground of the real. Your little thoughts cannot move it." But ask him a question he cannot answer. Where does the hardness happen? Not in the floor, in you. The pressure, the cold, the solidity, all of it is an event in your awareness. You have never once in your life touched the floor directly. You have only ever touched the experience of the floor, rendered inside your own mind, every single time, with no exceptions. The floor you know is, and has always been, mental. The Kybalion took that small, undeniable fact, the one even the scientists half admit when they are honest, and pushed it all the way to the bottom. If everything you have ever experienced has been mental, then the world you actually live in, the only one you will ever have access to, is a mental world, top to bottom. And it sits inside a larger mind that holds the whole thing in place. This is what we have been calling the gray architecture, the matrix, if you want the modern word. It is not metal and wire. It is consensus. It is a mental creation so vast, so old, and held by so many sleeping minds at once, that it feels like iron. The streets, the prices, the rules, the slow gray weather of an ordinary life. All of it is thought, frozen by agreement, mistaken for stone. And here is the turn that should put a chill down your spine. If the universe is a mental creation and you are a movement inside that mind, made in its likeness, then the same power that holds galaxies in place is running, in miniature, in you, right now. The book says it plainly. We are created in the likeness of the all, which means we carry, on our own small plane, the same creative nature, the same fire, scaled down. You are not separate from the dream. You are a place where the dream is dreaming itself awake. Now, before you get drunk on that, before you start thinking you are about to wave your hand and rearrange the furniture of your life, stop. Because this is exactly where most people ruin it. They hear, "You are a creator," and they sprint straight into fantasy and ego. and they crash, and they decide the whole thing was a lie. We are going to deal with that trap later tonight in its own chamber, because it is the single most dangerous mistake in this entire teaching. For now, hold only this. The world is mental. Your life is mental. The recurring shape of your days, the same fear arriving in new clothes, the ceiling you cannot seem to break through. None of that is happening to you from the outside, from a dead and indifferent world. It is being rendered from somewhere, by something, through you, which raises the only question that matters now. If you are a creator, made in the likeness of the mind that dreams the stars, then why is your life the way it is? Why the struggle? Why the same wound, again and again? Why does it feel so much less like creating and so much more like a cell? Because you have been creating it asleep. And a creator who does not know he is creating does not stop creating. He just builds a prison and calls it the world. Let me show you exactly how that prison gets built and who holds the key from the inside.
Chapter 4.
No one ever sat you down and locked the door. That is what makes the invisible prison so perfect. There were no bars. There was no guard. There was only 1,000 small, ordinary days, each one teaching you the same quiet lesson, until the lesson became the air you breathe. The lesson was this: you are small. The world is big. The world is real, and you are a passenger in it. Things happen to you, and your job is to react, to cope, to manage, to survive. That is the whole curriculum of the gray architecture. And you learned it before you could spell your own name. Think about how it was installed. As a child, you were pure signal. You wanted, and the wanting was total. You believed the world would bend because, for a while in the small kingdom of your crib, it did. And then, one disappointment at a time, the world taught you to stop expecting, to lower the ceiling yourself, so the disappointment would have less far to fall. You called that growing up, becoming realistic, being mature. But watch what actually happened underneath the words. You took the creative power the book says you were born with, that likeness to the infinite mind, and you handed it over. You gave it to your circumstances. You gave it to other people's opinions. You gave it to the number in your bank account and the face in the mirror and the story your family told about who you were always going to be. The Kybalion has a cold, exact description of the person this produces. It says, the masses of people are carried along, obedient to their environment, moved by the wills and desires of others stronger than themselves, pushed by inherited tendencies and the moods of the moment, swept this way and that, like a piece on a board that thinks it is the player. That is not an insult. It is a diagnosis. And it describes almost everyone you have ever met. Not bad people, asleep people. People being used by the very laws they could be using. People who are pure effect, all the way down, and have never once suspected they could be a cause. So who runs the prison while you sleep? You already know him. You have heard his voice your whole life and mistaken it for your own. We are going to call him the old man, the shadow, the ego, if you want the clinical word. But that word has gone soft from overuse. So let us keep him sharp. He is the part of you that was built entirely out of fear and repetition. He is the keeper of the lowered ceiling. Every time you have reached for something larger than your usual life, he is the voice that said, "Who do you think you are?" Every time the world cracked open and showed you a little light, He is the one who pulled the curtain and said, "Be realistic, go back to sleep." The old man is not evil. Understand that, because hating him only feeds him. He was built to protect you. He learned early that wanting too much got you hurt. So he decided the safest life was a small one, a predictable one. A cell, but a warm cell, with the door left comfortably shut. And he has been redecorating that cell for years. Every grudge you rehearse in the shower, every worst-case scenario you run at 3 in the morning, every time you imagine the conversation going badly before it has happened at all, that is not idle thought. Remember the first law: the universe is mental. So every one of those rehearsals is a brushstroke. You have been an artist this entire time, working in the dark, painting the same gray walls over and over, and calling the result your life. This is the heart of the prison, and it is so simple that the sleeping mind slides right past it. You are not trapped because the world is against you. You are trapped because you are a creator who has only ever practiced creating the things you do not want. You have 100,000 hours of expertise in imagining the disaster, the rejection, the lack. You are a master of exactly the wrong thing. And the world, being mental, being faithful, gives you back what you have practiced, not as punishment, as echo. We will go deep into that echo next, because it is the most important thing I will tell you tonight. But feel the shape of it now. The recurring heartbreak. The money that arrives and vanishes the same way every time. The relationships that rhyme. None of it is a curse. It is the structure of a cell you built by hand, by habit, by the steady work of an unwatched mind. So why does it feel so impossible to leave? Because the old man has one last trick, and it is his cruelest. He convinces you that the cell is you, that your limits are your personality, that your fear is your nature. He blurs the line between the prisoner and the prison until you defend the walls as if they were your own skin. But there is a reason you are still awake right now, this far into the night, listening. Some part of you never fully signed the agreement. Some part of you has always stood a little apart from the old man, watching him work, suspecting the walls were thinner than he claimed. That watcher is the real you, the operant power, the one the book was actually written for. And that watcher is about to learn the most disorienting truth in the entire teaching. The reason you cannot simply force the walls to move, the reason willpower fails, the reason you push and push at your circumstances and nothing gives. Because you have been trying to change the reflection. And the reflection has never been where the change is made.
Chapter 5.
You have been trying to change the reflection. Sit with how much of your life that one sentence explains. Every time you tried to force the situation, every diet, every resolution, every clean slate that lasted 9 days. Every time you walked into the new job, the new city, the new relationship, certain that this time would be different. And watch the same shape slowly rise up out of it, like something surfacing in water. You were standing at the mirror, hating what you saw, scrubbing at the glass. And the glass cannot be scrubbed. The image in it is not the problem. The image is a report, a faithful, patient report of what is standing in front of it. The Kybalion gave us the first law. The universe is mental. Now we follow that law to the place it actually lives, in your real life, on a real night like this one. If the world is mental, then the world is a mirror. Not a poetic mirror, a working one. It does only one thing. It returns to you the substance of what you have been holding in mind. But it returns it slowly. And that slowness is the whole reason you never saw the pattern. We're going to call this The delayed echo. Picture standing in a canyon at night. You shout, and there is a silence, a long one, before the sound comes back. Long enough that if you did not understand canyons, you would never connect the echo to your own voice. You would think the canyon was speaking on its own. You would think the voice in the dark was fate, or God, or your bad luck. That is exactly your situation. You broadcast a signal with your attention, your assumptions, the quiet things you believe about yourself when no one is watching. And the world takes its time. Weeks, months, sometimes years. And then it answers. By the time the answer arrives, you have forgotten you ever called out. So when the same heartbreak walks through the door again, you do not recognize your own voice in it. You say, "Why does this always happen to me?" You say it like a victim, when the honest words are, "Why do I keep calling this in?" I want to be careful here, because this is the exact point where cruel teachers turn this knowledge into a whip. They say it is all your fault. They say you attracted your own suffering, and they say it with a kind of glee, as if you deserved it. That is the old man wearing the mask of a guru. Throw it out. This is not blame. Listen to me. A child broadcasting fear because the people who were supposed to keep him safe did not. That child did not deserve the echo he got. A person who learned in a home with no warmth that love is a thing that gets taken away did not choose the signal they were handed. You were trained to broadcast what you broadcast. You inherited a frequency. You have been transmitting faithfully the exact assumptions that were installed in you before you had any say in the matter. So the echo is not your guilt. It is your evidence. It is proof that the law is real, and that it has been working this whole time with perfect loyalty in the dark for someone who never knew it was there. And that should land in your chest as the first real flicker of hope you have felt in a long time. Because think about what it means. If your life had simply been random, dead matter colliding with dead matter, then there would be nothing to do. You would be a leaf in a wind that does not know you exist. But that is not what the delayed echo tells you. It tells you the world has been answering you, personally, the whole time. Which means the world is listening. Which means the line is open. Which means everything you have suffered was not the universe ignoring you. It was the universe holding up a mirror you did not know how to read. Now let me speak to the thing you carry, the one you do not say out loud. You know the one. Maybe it is the sense that you are behind, that everyone else got a manual you never received, and you have been faking it, and one day they will find out. Maybe it is a loneliness so old it feels like furniture. Maybe it is a specific person, a specific loss, a specific door that closed and never opened again, and you have spent years pretending it does not still ache when the room goes quiet. Maybe it is just the gray weight of an ordinary Tuesday, the suspicion that this exact muffled feeling is all your one life was ever going to be. I am not going to tell you to be grateful for it. I am not going to tell you it was secretly a gift. That is the cheap voice, the bright and bubbly lie. And you would be right to switch this off if I started speaking it. The pain was real. Some of it was unfair in a way that no reframe will ever fix. But here's the reckoning. Quietly, just between us, in this room. That suffering has also been your most consistent broadcast. The story you tell yourself in the worst hours, the picture of your life you have rehearsed 10,000 times. That is not a private wound sealed off from the world. Under the first law, It has been an instruction, the most powerful, most repeated instruction you have ever given the mind you live inside. And the mind, being faithful, has been building it. You have been an architect this entire time, a grieving one, a frightened one, an architect working blind, in mourning, drawing the same locked room from memory because it was the only blueprint anyone ever gave you. And the moment you understand that, truly understand it, not as a clever idea, but as the floor giving way under everything you thought was solid, two things happen at once. The first is grief, a real one. You may feel it right now, a pressure behind the eyes, because some part of you is realizing how long you have been doing this, and how much it cost, and how different things might have been if someone had handed you this book 20 years ago. Let that grief come. It is honest. It is the sound of waking up. But the second thing is power. Because an architect who realizes he has been drawing the prison can, for the first time, draw something else. Not by scrubbing the mirror, not by forcing the reflection, by changing what stands in front of the glass. That is the door out. That is what the rest of this book is for. The operant power is not the ability to shout louder at the canyon. It is the calm, deliberate work of changing the signal at its source, in here, and then having the patience to wait through the silence while the echo turns. And I wish I could tell you that the moment you grasp this, you simply walk free. But I would be lying, and you have been lied to enough. Because there is a trap waiting right here at the exact instant of awakening, and it has destroyed more people than the prison ever did. The prison only keeps you asleep. This next thing wakes you up just enough to burn you alive. The moment you realize you are a creator, the old man does not die. He converts. He stops whispering that you are nothing, and he starts roaring that you are everything, that you are God, that you can bend the whole world to your will by Friday. And that, the oldest writers warned, is the mistake that does not just trap you. It destroys you. Let me show you the trap, so you can walk past it.
Chapter 6.
There are three kinds of people in this teaching. Almost everyone you will ever meet is the first kind. And the second kind, the one you are in danger of becoming tonight, is the one the old writers were truly afraid of. The first kind is asleep. We have spent this whole night describing them. The masses, carried along, pure effect, dreaming the prison and calling it the world. They never read the book. They never even see the door. They are not the danger. The third kind is awake, fully. The ones the book calls masters. They are rare and they are quiet. And we will not pretend tonight that you become one by listening to a single transmission. They have done the long work. We will get to what that work actually is. But between the sleeper and the master, there is a middle ground, and it is on fire. The Kybalion calls them the half-wise, and it does not flatter them. It says the half-wise, having glimpsed that the universe is mental, having realized that the world is in some sense unreal, decide that this means they can defy its laws. And the book's verdict on them is brutal. It says such people are vain and presumptuous fools, and that they are broken against the rocks and torn apart by the very forces they thought they had risen above. Read that again and feel how strange it is. This is a book about your power as a creator. And right in the middle of it, the authors stop and warn you in the harshest language they use anywhere against the exact intoxication this knowledge produces. Why would they do that? Unless they had watched it happen. unless they knew that the moment you hand a sleeper this kind of fire, the first thing he tries to do is burn down everyone who ever doubted him. Here is the trap, precisely. I told you the old man does not die when you wake up. He converts. For your whole life he whispered that you were small, that you should not want too much, that the ceiling was real. And now you have learned that you are a creator, made in the likeness of the infinite mind. So the old man simply flips the script. He stops saying you are nothing. He starts screaming that you are everything. He says, you are God now. He says, the world is your dream, so bend it. Get the money by Friday. Force the person who left to come crawling back. Prove the doubters wrong. Take what you are owed. He takes the deepest truth in this book and hands it to your hungriest, most wounded self as a weapon. And that self runs straight at the canyon wall, certain it can walk through. This is the great misunderstanding of the whole modern movement that grew out of books like this one. The cheap version. The version that promises you a sports car if you stare at a photo of it hard enough. The version that turns the most serious teaching about consciousness into a shopping technique. The half-wise version. And it fails, reliably. And when it fails, people do not conclude that they misunderstood. They conclude the law is fake. So they go back to sleep, more bitter than before, telling everyone it was nonsense. The trap does not just burn the half-wise, it poisons the well for everyone behind them. So how do the masters avoid it? How do you hold real power without being broken against the rocks? The answer is the most sophisticated idea in the entire book, and the part that cheap teachers always cut out. It is called the divine paradox. The paradox is this: the universe is mental, and therefore, compared to the all, it is not ultimately solid, not final, not the bedrock it pretends to be. That is true. But at the same time, while you are living inside it, the universe is completely real, and its laws are completely binding. Both at once. You must hold both, or you fall off one side or the other. Fall off one side and you become the half-wise fool, the man who says nothing is real, so the rules do not apply to me, and walks off the cliff to prove it. Fall off the other side, and you collapse back into the sleeper, the one who says the world is the only thing that is real and I am powerless inside it. The master walks the ridge between. He knows the world is a dream, and he treats it with total seriousness anyway. He knows the laws can be risen above, and he obeys them with total discipline while he does it. The book has a phrase for how the wise actually operate. They serve on the higher and rule on the lower, meaning they bow to the laws that come from above them, the great principles, the structure of the mind itself. And because they bow to those, they are given quiet authority over the plane beneath them, their own life, their own circumstances. Power flows to the one who submits to the law, and it shatters the one who tries to break it. And this is where I have to correct something, gently, even in the way we have been speaking tonight. I have called you the operant power, the architect, the dreamer of the dream. And that is true, on your plane. But you must never let the old man twist it into the claim that you are the infinite all itself. You are not. You are a focal point of it, a movement within it. A wave is not the ocean, even though there is nothing in the wave that is not ocean. You were made in the likeness of the mind. You were not handed its throne. That distinction is not a limit on your power. It is the thing that keeps your power from killing you. The wave that remembers it is part of the ocean, moves with unimaginable force, and never exhausts itself. The wave that decides it is the whole ocean, separate, sovereign, owed, That wave breaks on the shore and is gone. So hear the real shape of the goal now, stripped of the fantasy. You were never here to manifest toys. You were never here to force the world to kneel, or to punish the people who hurt you, or to prove anything to anyone in the gray architecture. Those are the old man's wants, dressed up in the language of awakening. They are the prison, painted gold. The real work is quieter and far more dangerous to the prison than any of that. It is to master the old man himself, to take back the creative power you have been spending blind, and to spend it awake on purpose, in alignment with the laws instead of in defiance of them. Not to become a god, to stop being a slave, to walk the ridge between the two falls and learn, finally, to author your own life on its own plane, with discipline, with humility, and with a power that does not burn you because it is no longer feeding the ego that wants the world to suffer. That is the path. And it has a name in the book. A specific art the masters practiced. The one practical skill that turns all of this from philosophy into something you can do, tonight, in this room, with the breath in your own chest. They called it mental transmutation. And it is the thing the world has been hiding from you in plain sight for 100 years. Let me show you how it works.
Chapter 7.
You already know the word for this art. You have just been taught to laugh at it. Alchemy. When you hear it, you picture a fool in a robe trying to turn lead into gold to get rich. And that is precisely the disguise. That is the cover story a careful tradition put over the top of the real work, so that the greedy would chase the metal and never find the door. Because the gold was never the point. The lead was never lead. The real alchemy, the one the Kybalion places at the very center of everything, was always the transmutation of the one substance the whole universe is made of: mind. The book gives it a name: mental transmutation. And it calls it the master art, the one practical skill beneath all the others. It defines it simply: the art of changing your own mental states and conditions into different ones. Changing lead into gold, but the lead is fear, and the gold is the state you choose instead. The hermitist does not pray for a better world to be delivered to him. He learns to transmute the substance the world is made of, at the only place he can ever reach it: inside himself. Now hold this against everything we have built tonight, because it locks into place like a key. The universe is mental. The first law: the outer world is the delayed echo of the inner state. So where is the only lever in your entire life that actually moves anything? Not the circumstance, not the bank balance, not the other person. Those are all reflection. They are downstream. They are echo. The single lever, the only one you have ever had your hands on, is the state of your own mind in this present moment. That is why willpower against the world fails. That is why you can white-knuckle your circumstances for years and exhaust yourself for nothing. You are heaving on the gears. The master ignores the gears entirely and rests one hand on the lever and waits. So how do you actually pull it? This is where I have to be careful, because the cheap teachers turn this into the bright and bubbly lie. And you would be right to walk away if I did. They tell you to force yourself to be positive, to paste a smile over the dread and chant that everything is wonderful. That is not transmutation. That is denial wearing a costume, and the old man sees straight through it. Because underneath the chanting, your true signal, the one the echo actually answers, is still fear. Real mental transmutation does not deny the unpleasant thing. It does something the masters understood and the modern world forgot. It changes the thing into its opposite, by degree. Here is the secret underneath it. and it points at the deeper doors we have not opened yet. Fear and courage are not two different things. They are the same thing, measured at different points on a single line. Hatred and love, despair and faith, cold and heat. The book teaches that every state has two poles and that they are not enemies. They are the same substance at opposite ends. And because they are the same substance, you can move along the line. You cannot leap from terror to joy in an instant. That is the half-wise fantasy. But you can raise fear, by degree, toward courage. You can take the cold thing in your chest and lift it, notch by notch, toward warmth. Because it was always the same thing, just frozen at the wrong end. That is alchemy. Not pretending the lead is gold. Patiently raising the lead along the only line it was ever on, until it becomes gold. And you do it with two faculties you already possess, the two halves of every act of creation: the will, which directs, and the imagination, which conceives. The will is the hand on the lever. The imagination is the new image you place in front of the mind. One without the other does nothing. Will alone is just strain. Imagination alone is just daydreaming. Together, they transmute. So let me make it real. Tonight, in this room. Right now, you are carrying a state. You brought it with you into this dark. Maybe it is that low gray weight. Maybe it is the specific ache we named earlier. Do not fight it. Do not deny it. Locate it. Feel where it sits in the body, the chest, the throat, the pit of the stomach. That honesty is the lead in the crucible. You cannot transmute what you will not first hold. Then, with the will, you direct, and with the imagination, you supply a new image, not of the thing you want to own, but of the state you choose to be in, the feeling of the version of you who is already free of this. Not the car, not the win, the inner posture of the one who has already walked out of the cell. You do not argue with the dread. You raise it by holding the higher feeling steady against it, the way a warm room slowly raises the temperature of a cold stone you set inside it. Quietly, without force, until the stone forgets it was ever cold. And here is the part the cheap version cuts, the part that separates the real work from the fantasy. You have to do it before the evidence arrives. You assume the state first, in the dark with nothing in the outer world yet agreeing with you. And then you wait through the silence of the canyon. You hold the new signal, faithfully, through the long lag of the delayed echo, while the old reflection is still showing you the old life. Most people break right there. They hold the new state for a week, see that the mirror has not changed yet, and conclude it does not work. They quit during the silence. They quit one breath before the echo turns. The master does not quit during the silence, because the master is not watching the mirror for proof. The master has moved his sense of what is real off of the reflection entirely and onto the lever. He knows the echo is law, cause and effect. Nothing escapes it. So he does not need to see the gold to know the lead is already turning. He governs the inner state the way other men guard a flame in the wind, and he lets the world catch up in its own time. That is the whole discipline. It is not dramatic. It does not look like magic. From the outside, it looks like a person who has become strangely difficult to knock off center. Someone who feels the fear and raises it, who catches the old man mid-broadcast, mid-rehearsal of the disaster, and deliberately, gently changes the signal. Again and again. 10,000 times, the same number of brushstrokes it took to paint the cell, now spent painting something else. This is the operant power, not a thunderbolt, a craft. the slow, awake, patient transmutation of your own inner state. Repeat it until the echo has no choice but to return it. And the moment you understand that the lever is real, that you have had your hand on it your whole life, without knowing, you stop being a victim of your circumstances forever. Not because the circumstances vanish, because you finally know where they are made. But mental transmutation is only the first art, worked through the first door. It functions because of the deeper laws running underneath it, the ones we have only glimpsed. The line with two poles, the thing that vibrates, the tide that swings back, the cause that cannot be escaped, the will and the imagination joined. 6 more chambers, 6 more keys, each one making the first art sharper, stronger, more precise. The book promised that whoever knows all 7, understandingly, holds the master key, and before it, every door in the temple opens. So before this night ends, let me take you to the threshold of the other 6. Not to walk all the way through them, that is the work of the chambers still to come, but to show you what waits in the dark beyond the first door, so you know exactly how deep this goes.
Chapter 8.
Tonight, we only had to open the first door, because the first is the one that holds the rest. But you should not leave this room thinking mentalism stands alone. It does not. It is the foundation, and standing on a foundation alone in an empty field is not the same as living in the house. So let me walk you to the threshold of the other 6. Briefly, the way you might be shown the rooms of a place you are going to spend the rest of your life learning. Not to enter them tonight, to know they are there. The second door is correspondence. It is the oldest line in the whole Hermetic tradition, and it is a map. It says the same pattern repeats on every level of reality. The structure of the atom echoes the structure of the solar system. The law that governs the smallest thing governs the largest. And for you, sleep in the gray architecture, it means something that should stop your breath. The pattern of your inner world is the pattern of your outer life. Exactly. As above, so below. The chaos in the house is the chaos in the mind that built it. So if you ever want to read your own hidden state, you do not look inward and guess. You look at your life. Your circumstances are a printout of your consciousness, and correspondence is how you learn to read it. The third door is vibration. Nothing in the universe is truly still, the book says. Not the chair, not the stone, not the wall. Everything is in motion, everything vibrates. And the only difference between solid matter and pure spirit is the rate of the vibration. And here is the part that makes the operant power dangerous. Your mental states vibrate too. Fear has a rate. Courage has a rate. Despair sits low and heavy and slow. The old writers said that the one who understands vibration has grasped the scepter of power, because once you know your states are frequencies, you stop waiting to feel better and start deliberately changing your signal. You raise the rate. You tune yourself the way you would tune an instrument, instead of waiting for the world to tune you. The fourth door is polarity. You have already felt it tonight. This is the law underneath the whole art of transmutation. Everything has 2 poles, and the poles are not enemies. They are the same thing at different degrees. Hot and cold are one thing called temperature. Love and hate are one thing measured from opposite ends. The book says all paradoxes can be reconciled here, that the extremes always meet. Which means you can never destroy fear, because fear is not separate from courage. It is the cold end of the same line. But you can move along it. The master does not wage war on his lower states. He polarizes himself deliberately toward the higher end of the line they were already on. That is the precision tool behind everything I showed you in the last chamber. The fifth door is rhythm, and I want you to slow down here, because this one will save you on the hard nights. Everything swings. There is a rhythm to all things, a tide that comes in and a tide that goes out. And the book says the measure of the swing one way is the exact measure of the swing back. This is why your good days are followed by the crash. Why the high is paid for by the low. The sleeper is helpless before this. He soars when the pendulum carries him up, and he is dragged into the dark when it swings back down, and he calls it his moods, and he thinks it is just who he is. But the masters found a way through it, and it is one of the most practical secrets in the book. They learned not to ride the pendulum all the way up in the first place. When the high tide comes, they refuse to be swept fully into the elation, because they know the receipt is coming. They polarize themselves quietly at a point of their own choosing, and they let the backswing pass beneath them. They rise above the rhythm on the higher plane while their lower self still feels the tide. So when your dark night comes, and it will, rhythm is the law that tells you it is a tide, not a truth. It is going out. It always comes back in. You do not have to drown in it. You can stand above the waterline and wait. The sixth door is cause and effect. Every effect has a cause. Nothing in the universe happens by chance, the book says, because what you call chance is only a law you have not yet learned to see. This is the engine under the delayed echo. Your life is not random. It is lawful, all the way down. And that is either the worst news or the best, depending on which kind of person you choose to become tonight. Because the masses are effects. They are caused. They are moved by their environment, their moods, the wills of stronger people, the inheritance they never chose, carried along like pieces on a board that mistake themselves for players. But the master rises, by degree, onto a higher plane of causation. He stops being only an effect. He becomes a cause. He cannot escape the law, no one can. But he learns to work it from above, instead of being worked by it from below. And the seventh door is gender. Set aside everything the word makes you think of, because the book is not talking about men and women or about the body at all. It is talking about the two forces present in every act of creation, on every plane, including inside your own single mind. There is a masculine principle, which is the will, the part of you that directs, that projects, that says, let it be so. And there is a feminine principle, which is the imagination, the part of you that conceives, that receives the seed of an idea and gives it form and grows it into something real. Nothing is ever created by one alone. Will without imagination is barren force. Imagination without will is a daydream that never lands. But when the will turns to the imagination and impresses an image upon it, with intention, that image takes root and begins, slowly, to become. That is the actual mechanism of creation inside you. That is how the operant power authors a life. Not by wishing. By the disciplined marriage of the two halves of your own mind, the director and the dreamer, working as one. 7 doors, 1 key. The book promised that the one who holds all 7, understandingly, can open every door in the temple. And you have only stood at the first one tonight. Imagine what the rest of you becomes, room by room, as you learn to live in the whole house instead of dying in a single cell. But that is the work of nights still to come. Tonight, there is only one thing left to do. The door behind you is open. The cell is unlocked. And the only question left in this entire transmission is whether you are actually going to stand up and walk out of it. Let me walk you to the threshold.
Chapter 9.
Come back to the room. The same room you were sitting in 2 hours ago when we started. Feel the chair again. Feel the weight of your arms. Feel the floor still pulling at you. The same gravity that closed around you on the first day of your life and has never once let go. Nothing in this room has changed, and everything has. Because 2 hours ago, that weight meant you were trapped. It was the proof of the prison, the heaviness of being a small, soft thing that the world happens to. And now you know what it actually is. It is the delayed echo. It is the faithful return of a signal you have been broadcasting in the dark for years without knowing the line was even open. The weight was never your sentence. It was your evidence. Evidence that the law is real, that the world has been listening this whole time, and that the lever was always within reach of your own hand. Here is the truth about the invisible prison that the old man fought all night to keep from you. The door was never locked. It was never locked because it was never a real door. The cell was mental. The walls were thought, frozen by habit, painted by an architect who did not know he was painting. And a wall made of thought cannot hold a mind that remembers what it is. The only thing that ever kept you inside was not the lock. It was the belief that the lock was real. The belief that you were the prisoner, when all along you were also the one who built the cell, and therefore the one who could walk out of it. So leaving is not an act of force. You do not break out of the invisible prison. You wake up inside it, and you stand, and you find that the wall you spent your whole life leaning against was never load-bearing. It was a story. And the moment you stop telling it, it stops standing. Now I have to be honest with you, the way I promised at the start. Because you have been lied to by every bright and bubbly voice that ever sold you a shortcut. Walking out does not mean the whole landscape of your life rearranges itself by morning. It does not. The echo has a lag. The old reflection will keep showing you the old life for a while yet, because the signal you sent a year ago is still arriving. The bills on the table tomorrow will still be the bills. The ache will not vanish on command. That is not failure. That is physics in a mental universe. The lead does not become gold in the instant you decide to transmute it. It turns by degree. Along the line, it was always on, while you hold the warmth steady against it and wait through the silence. Leaving the cell does not mean the cell is gone. It means you are no longer the prisoner in it. You have become the watcher, the operant power, the one who governs the inner state while the outer world slowly, faithfully catches up. And the old man. He does not die tonight. I told you that hating him only feeds him, so do not go to war with him on your way out the door. He converts one final time, but this time you are the one converting him. The voice that spent your whole life keeping the ceiling low becomes, in the hands of a master, a servant. His caution becomes your discipline. His fear becomes your early warning system, telling you exactly where the old broadcast is still running so you can catch it and raise it. You do not exile the shadow. You put him to work. The keeper of the cell becomes the one who guards the threshold, now that you are the one who decides who passes. Now go all the way back with me, to the very first thing you ever knew. You came into this world screaming, not because of the cold air or the harsh light. You screamed because you felt the weight, and the weight felt like separation. One moment you were everything, a movement in an infinite mind with no edges, connected to the source of all things. And the next you were small, fragile, limited, born into a conspiracy of silence that would spend the next decades convincing you the small thing was all you ever were. That was the forgetting. Every life begins with it. But tonight was the remembering. And so the old sentence, the one they handed you at birth, has to be rewritten. They told you, you are small, you are fragile, you are limited. They were describing the wave and calling it the whole truth. Here is the truth. You are small, and you are a movement in something infinite. You are fragile, and you are made in the likeness of the mind that dreams the stars. You are limited on your own plane, and on that plane, you are the architect. A wave is not the ocean, but there is nothing in the wave that is not ocean. You were never only the prisoner. You were always, also, the one holding the key. So stand up, not in some far-off, someday way. Tonight, in the actual room you are in, with the actual weight in your actual chest. The cell is unlocked. The first door is open and lit behind you, and 6 more wait in the dark, each one making you sharper, each one another key. The art is in your hands now. The lever is under your fingers. The only work left is the work itself, the slow alchemy, the steady governing of the signal, the patience to hold the new state through the long silence before the echo turns. Again and again and again, until the world has no choice but to answer. I will not pretend most people do this. They do not. We said it at the start, with the oldest warning in the book. The lips of wisdom stay closed, except to the ears of understanding. By tomorrow morning, most of the people who heard these exact words tonight will have let them slide off. They will go back to sleep in the warm cell, defend the walls as if they were skin, and tell themselves it was just a video. The old man will win in most of the rooms this reaches. That is simply true, and I will not soften it. But not all of them. One of them stays awake. One of them feels the weight differently now. One of them is sitting very still, right now, in a dim room, feeling something come loose in the chest that has been locked for a very long time, and understanding, maybe for the first time, that the heaviness was never the truth about them. I have been speaking to that one all night. So step through. The floor that pulled at you your whole life is still there under your feet, and now you know it for what it is. A faithful echo, a mirror, a thing you author and not a thing that authors you. Carry the weight differently. Walk out of the cell you built and leave the door open behind you for the next part of you that is not woken yet. The first law is yours now. You will never unsee it, and the temple has 6 more doors.
Chapter 10.
So that is the first law. The all is mind. The universe is mental. You are a movement inside an infinite mind, made in its likeness, dreaming a life you mistook for a prison, and the door was never locked. Everything else we descend into from here, all 6 chambers still ahead, rests on that one foundation. Get it wrong, and the rest is noise. Hold it truly, and the rest begins to open on its own. I am not going to send you off with a list of affirmations. You know by now this channel does not deal in that. So take only one thing with you tonight. 1. The lever is your inner state, and it is the only thing in your entire life you have ever actually held. Tomorrow, when the old echo arrives at your door wearing its old face, you will feel the pull to react the way you always have, to broadcast the fear, to pick up the brush and paint the gray wall one more time. That moment, that small, ordinary moment, is the whole work. Catch it. Feel it honestly, and then raise it by 1 degree toward the thing you would rather become. That is mental transmutation. That is the entire art, practiced 1 breath at a time in a room exactly like the one you are in now. You will not do it perfectly. The masters did not either. You will forget and fall back asleep and remember again, and that remembering is the muscle. Every time you catch the old man mid-broadcast and change the signal, the muscle grows. The cell gets quieter. The echo slowly turns. This is not the end of anything. It is the first door, and the temple has 6 more, each one sharper than the last. Behind the next one is correspondence, the oldest line in the whole tradition. As above, so below. The law that says your outer life is an exact map of your inner world, and that once you learn to read the map, you can find the precise place where the prison was being built and change it at the source. That is the chamber we descend into next. If something in you came loose tonight, if you felt the weight shift even slightly, then you are one of the ones who stays awake. And the rest of these transmissions were made for you. So when you are ready to descend again, the door stays open. Follow the way down. Subscribe to the descent. Not for me, but so the next chamber finds you on a night like this one, in a room like this one, at the moment you are ready to hear it. That is the only reason any of this is being said aloud at all. For now, sit a moment longer in the quiet. Do not rush back into the gray architecture. Let the room be just a room. Let the floor be just the floor, faithful and yours. Feel the weight one last time, and notice that it is the same weight you have carried your whole life, and that it does not mean what it used to mean. You came into this world screaming, certain you were small. You are not small. You are the one who was dreaming the whole time, finally beginning to wake.
So that is the first law. The all is mind. The universe is mental. You are a movement inside an infinite mind, made in its likeness, dreaming a life you mistook for a prison. And the door was never locked. Everything else we descend into from here rests on that one foundation. 6 chambers still ahead. 6 more keys, each one sharper than the last. Take only one thing with you tonight. The lever is your inner state. It is the only thing in your entire life you have ever actually held. Tomorrow, when the old echo arrives at your door, wearing its old face, you will feel the pull to react the way you always have, to broadcast the fear, to pick up the brush and paint the grey wall one more time. That moment is the whole work. Catch it, feel it honestly, and then raise it by 1 degree toward the thing you would rather become. That is the entire art, practiced 1 breath at a time, in a room exactly like the one you are in now. This is not the end of anything, it is the first door. Behind the next one is correspondence, the oldest line in the whole tradition. As above, so below. The law that says your outer life is an exact map of your inner world. Once you learn to read the map, you can find the precise place where the prison was being built, and change it at the source. That is the chamber we descend into next. If something in you came loose tonight, if you felt the weight shift even slightly, then you are one of the ones who stays awake. The rest of these transmissions were made for you. So when you are ready to descend again, the door stays open. Follow the way down. Subscribe to the descent. Not for me, but so the next chamber finds you on a night like this one, in a room like this one, at the moment you're ready to hear it. And if you want to carry these transmissions with you, away from the screen, the full collection lives at mindhavenaudio.cloud. The forbidden books. Read aloud the way they were meant to be read. Yours to keep. For now, sit a moment longer in the quiet. Do not rush back into the grey architecture. Let the room be just a room. Let the floor be just the floor, faithful and yours. Feel the weight one last time. And notice that it is the same weight you have carried your whole life. and that it does not mean what it used to mean. You came into this world screaming, certain you were small. You are not small. You are the one who was dreaming the whole time, finally beginning to wake.